What's up, guys? Spot on Picks here, back with some of the most accurate combat sports picks on YouTube. Last week, we missed one fight. The whole card, everything went how I said it was gonna go, pretty much. Very solid past couple weeks for me, so let's continue that momentum. Like I said, I'm hitting my prime right now, making picks, so I'm just trying to keep it going. This week we got International Fight Week, UFC 239. Some of the biggest fights are on International Fight Week, so, these fights usually end up being the most important fights of the year. So we got to get them right. It started off with Pannie Kianzad versus Julia Avila. Two females starting it off, and Pannie Kianzad was on the Ultimate Fighter last season. Very scrappy girl. She likes to brawl. That's what I would say her style is. She's a real brawler. We got Julia Avila on the other hand, and I'm surprised she hasn't found her way in the UFC yet. She's 31, but she's been fighting since 2012. Look at the names on her resume: Marion Renew, Nico Montano. Her only loss to date is where she broke her hand. So she's been fighting in Invicta and some other small organizations, but she's finally getting her call at the UFC. And I've liked what I've seen from her so far. She has some wins over some good competition, so that's nice out of someone making their debut. But she seems to be a strong grappler for the most part. She walks her opponents down, and I think this is kind of the perfect matchup for her because Pannie Kianzad, she's a scrappy fighter. Don't get me wrong, but she's not technical in aspects of her game, I'd say. And she's susceptible to leg kicks, and Julia Avila's got a nice power leg kick on her. But Pannie Kianzad, man, she has some fun, bloody fights to watch if you haven't seen her fight. So she's moving down to 135 for this fight. I don't think that's gonna help her out too much. But she's 27. She's a younger fighter. That season of Ultimate Fighter really had some bums on it. Like, no offense to him, but Macy Chiesa was the best fighter by far. And, she's a future star, so. But before that, she was taking losses to Tanya Evinger and Sarah Kaufman, so. This is it's kind of a weird fight to have kick off International Fight Week, but I got Julia Avila. Easy call. Then we got the young phenom Ismail Naurdiev versus Chance Recountre. And Chance in his last fight fought Kyle Stewart. And Kyle Stewart's making his debut, so the win over Kyle Stewart is not good enough to really get you prepared for a guy like Ismail Naurdiev. This guy Ismail Naurdiev in his UFC debut, fought Michel Perez. That's a hell of a debut, man. The matchmakers saw something, though. I'm pretty sure he was a significant underdog in that fight. And he was 21 at the time of that fight, I think. He's 22 now. And, man, this guy has some dynamic proponents to his game. What I saw from him, he has some strong counter wrestling. Because, that guy, Michel Perez, he just wants to fucking smother you. And Ismail showed great footwork in that fight. He was very strong. But he prefers to keep it on the feet. In Chance Recountre, I believe, that was his third fight in the UFC that was his second fight in the UFC versus Kyle Stewart. Before that, he got decision by Bilal Muhammad, so that kind of shows you what to expect from him. I'm expecting Ismail to get a finish in this fight for sure, so I'll play the under in this one. Naurdiev by KO. Then we got Jack Marshman versus Edmen Shabazyan. Jack Marshman went to war with John Phillips. If you're going to war with John Phillips, I don't know what you're really expecting. There's a little bit of hype on this guy, but I don't see it. a lot of people say he lost the John Phillips fight. I don't really care, but look at Carl Robertson, man. The thing about it is Jack Marshman was getting controlled in the clinch by Carl Robertson. Carl Robertson's not a grappler in any aspect of his game, so if you're getting controlled by Carl Robertson, man, Edmen Shabazyan's going to control you the whole fight. He'll be able to control Marshman everywhere, in my opinion. And Edmen Shabazyan, man, they didn't go light on him when he got in the UFC. I mean, Darren Stewart's a killer. And right after the Contender Series, man, that's a solid win. Then he finished Charles Byrd in the first round. He finished his fight in the Contender Series in the first round. But, I mean, I like with this guy. He's a young, hungry guy. He might not have the best coaches in Edmund Tabardian or whatever his name is, but he seems to be a solid prospect. Only 21, very strong. Yeah, but this guy, Jack Marshman, I wouldn't be surprised if he pulls out last minute just because I don't think he has any way to compete in this fight. He does have heavy hands, I guess, the one thing you could say about him, but he's very slow. Very predictable in his strikes. He's been in the UFC for a little bit, actually, since 2016. And he got obliterated by Thiago Santos. He got controlled by Shoeface on the ground. He got beat up by Carl Robertson, and he went to war with John Phillips. So, going with the young prospect in this one, Edmen Shabazyan. I'd say he'll just control him. He might finish him at some point, but Jack Marshman's shown to have a chin, so I'd say decision, Shabazyan. Then we got Alejandro Perez versus Yadong Song. This is a good fight right here, man. Yadong Song in his last fight, he took on Vince Morales, and Vince Morales is shown to be a tough guy, man. He was beating up Ayman Zahabi in his last fight. So, I mean, I like Yadong Song's style, man. He's not afraid to fight. He's not afraid to exchange. He's one of these new age fighters that is very strong but skilled at the same time. He fought Barak Kandar in this first fight, and that was a good first fight for him. He got in a little bit of cage time, got to test his striking a bit, that he ended up getting the sub in the first round. He finished his next opponent, and he had a nice fight with Vince Morales where he dominated. Alejandro Perez, he hasn't faced above average competition, in my opinion. Look at this guy's resume. Quinones, average fighter. Jorgensen, average fighter. He got a draw with Albert Morales, which is kind of interesting because look what Morales went on to do. If I can get that. Look at this guy. He went on to have like a 4-fight losing streak in the UFC before he got cut. So, it's not the best fighter to get a draw with on your resume. But then he fought Sukum Tao, who's a can. It's hard to say, but he's a can. Alcantara is probably his best win. Maybe Wineland. But this guy Yadong Song, man, he's a young, hungry guy, man. He's only 21. Well, a lot of young fighters on this card, man. They're really trying to promote this new generation on this card. What I can say about Alejandro Perez is that, he loves to circle to the right. In his fights, I always notice that. Sometimes he starts off circling to his right. Other times he'll walk to the center, but he always ends up moving to his right. Maybe Yadong Song will time him up top with the left high kick or something like that. But Alejandro Perez, he gets caught kicking a lot of the times. He has a nice leg kick, but sometimes he kind of throws it nakedly and he gets caught down the middle. The thing about him is he does get walked down. He gives up real estate, I think in order for him to have a chance to win this fight, he would have to earn Yadong Song's respect, which I don't think he will, because, Yadong Song got some hammers on his hands, man. So I'd say even if Perez is a little hard to hit because he keeps backing up, Yadong can walk him down and just get a decision win if Perez doesn't want to fight him in the center. But young, strong guy in Yadong Song, man. He's rising in this bantamweight division, so it's another one to watch out for. And we got Claudia Gadelha versus Randa Markos. Claudia, man, very disappointing fighter. I'd say one of the worst fighters in the UFC. She could beat maybe some girls in the regional scene, but the UFC is evolving and she's not. In her last, in my opinion, she should be on a 3-fight losing streak. She lost the fight to Carla, and I was rooting for Claudia in that fight, but I thought she lost it. And she got rocked. She got beat up in that fight, and Nina exposed her, truly. But the difference between these two fighters, in my opinion, is good cardio and bad cardio. Because Randa has good cardio, and you know she's a tricky style to fight. She's very quick. I think I'd say her ground game is more technical than Claudia's. Claudia is very slow and plotty. I know she's just moving with Mark Henry now, but I think that's just gonna confuse her even more. She might get KO'd in this one. She's just the same fighter. I mean, she might get a takedown and she gasses herself out every time. For this fight, I'd say Markos by sub, but it's possible, but most likely Claudia will gas and Markos will get a decision. It's interesting that Claudia is the favorite, but I mean she's just been disappointing every time. So that's an easy call in my opinion. Randa Markos. And we got Gilbert Melendez versus Arnold Allen. This fight is kind of a mismatch in my opinion. This guy Gilbert Melendez, he was on a 4-fight losing streak before he had a brief retirement or whatever you want to call it, but he was just taking losses back and forth, and it looks like he's getting in good shape. But this guy's 37, and I don't think he should be cutting down to 145 again, man. His last fight was a decision loss to Jeremy Stevens, Edson Barbosa, Eddie Alvarez, Anthony Perez. His last win was in 2013 against Thiago Sanchez, and the blueprint to beating Gilbert Melendez has been written. Just kick his legs, just be a little bit faster than him. You don't have to engage with him too much. He's very plotty and very slow. So Arnold Allen's not the best striker, but I mean he's capable of winning a boring decision, as we've seen in his last fight. He's a very boring fighter in his own right. He likes to shoot his left hand every once in a while and just kick the leg with his left leg. Like, he's a southpaw. He's slick, I guess you could say, but this is a mismatch. I mean, this guy, I like Gilbert Melendez, but man, he's too old. He's going to get his leg kicked up. It's going to be all bruised the next day. He hasn't cut weight since 2015 or some shit, 2014. 2017, alright, but he's just too old, too slow. But I'm rooting for him. I got Arnold Allen decision, easy call. Then we got starting off the main card. We got Diego Sanchez versus Michael Chiesa. And Diego's been on a run lately, man. I did pick him in his last 2 fights, though. I thought Mickey Gall was overrated, and the guy he fought before that, Craig White, I think, or who was it? Yeah, Craig White, yeah. So, I picked him. Those were very winnable fights, in my opinion. Those were tough fights, but they're very winnable for Diego. But this is Mike Chiesa, man. Michael Chiesa was a problem at lightweight. And look at this guy. Look how he looks, bro. He doesn't look like the most tough fighter, but, I mean, look at this. He has a nice resume. And the fighter that I could compare to him probably is Francisco Trinaldo. Francisco Trinaldo's a kickboxing expert. You know, he's a very highly regarded striker, and he didn't want to throw hands with Michael Chiesa because he was scared to get taken down. Mike Chiesa doesn't have the best hands in the business, but his threat of the takedown, his threat of top pressure, I mean, he's very sticky. He's hard to get off you. I think he might have won the Perez fight if he didn't break his foot a week before. So you got to look at that. I mean, he absolutely demolished Carlos Condit. Carlos couldn't get him off of him. As for Diego Sanchez, man, he does have very predictable striking. He does rely on his top game. If he can't get you down, his striking's not good enough. He was getting lit up by Mickey Gall in the first round a bit. Mickey punched himself out. And he was just, he got overwhelmed by the guy who cuts less weight. But Mike Chiesa probably cuts less weight than Diego Sanchez, or maybe, I don't know, I'm not sure. But, he was a lightweight. These guys are both big lightweights, so I don't think Diego Sanchez will be able to control Chiesa on the ground. Chiesa's too young, too strong. This is a tailor-made matchup for Chiesa. I don't know why they're giving him this. Maybe this is just a second warm-up fight at welterweight, but Chiesa has beaten all the guys that KO'd Diego Sanchez, so, I mean, that's something to think about. He beat Ali Quinta. He beat all the guys, Joe Lazon. He has a win over, I mean, he has some good wins in his career. Darius, Jim Miller. But I think Michael Chiesa will just end up riding Sanchez like a bull rider, man. Like, once you get Chiesa on top of you and you're not as maybe technical as him, this guy has great top pressure, so it's hard to get him off. So, feel bad for Diego Sanchez, but I think he'll take this loss, maybe fight one more time, then he'll retire. Yeah, he's had a great career, though. Then we got Luke Rockhold versus Jan Blachowicz. Blachowicz coming off a KO by Thiago Santos, and Luke Rockhold coming off a KO by Yoel Romero. So these guys both got KO'd in their last fight. But can't look into their last performance, their last fights too much. I don't like to blame losses on weight cut, but this is a controversial one because, Luke, his fight style, and, he's cutting a lot of weight at 185. He was getting a lot of injuries at 185. I don't think he was ever fully healthy in the later half of his career. So, I mean, he is 34. I think Blachowicz is 35, if I'm correct. He's 36, so these guys are around the same age, but the fight that I could compare that Luke has had the most to Jan Blachowicz is Tim Boetsch. I watched this Tim Boetsch fight with Luke Rockhold, bro. This shit was dope. Like, Boetsch shot, I guess it was in the Rockhold's prime, but Boetsch shot on him. Luke swept him. He got him, and then Rockhold swept him. And then he got Boetsch in, like, this reverse triangle shit, and he was just elbowing the shit out of his ribs and just beating him up, like, while he was upside down. I mean, this could be very similar. I think I could see Luke controlling Blachowicz in the grappling situations, but on the feet, it could also benefit Rockhold as well. Blachowicz is shown to be susceptible to the body kicks, and that's Rockhold's main weapon. And the other thing about Blachowicz is he doesn't train with anybody elite. Like, this guy trains at a Warsaw, Poland, at his gym. His gym is S4 Fight Club. And I looked it up, and they don't have any. I think their best fighter is Marcin Tybura. So I don't think he has anybody in his gym that can compare to Luke. I mean, Luke's training at Hard Knocks 365, one of the best gyms in the world. He has endless sparring partners. I was just looking at his training partners the other day on Instagram, bro. He has some killers in that gym. So, and I see small deficiencies everywhere in Blachowicz's game. Like, he's not too complete of a fighter. I mean, he was on a nice win streak with the wins over Devin Clark, Cannonier, Manowar, Nikita Krylov. I think his best win's to Krylov, but I mean, he triangled Krylov. I don't think he could not submit Rockhold if he tried his hardest. So I'm going with the younger guy by 2 years here. I just see Rockhold, kicking Blachowicz in the body, controlling him on the ground a bit, possibly getting a submission win. Then we have the people's main event, Ben Askren versus Jorge Masvidal. Amazing fight. Just with the shit talking alone, but when you stack them up as fighters, I mean, it's a very interesting contrast of styles. The one thing I could say about both of you guys is their resume is in a different class. You cannot compare Ben Askren's resume to Jorge Masvidal's. Look who this man has fought, Ben Askren. Just three fights ago, he was fighting Shabazyan Kazakhstan, a straight trash can in one championship. Shinya Aoki's decent, but not very talented. His Avila is his best win easily. In his other fights, well, you see, when he was in Bellator, he wasn't really finished. He was just getting decisions on everyone. Then he went to one championship, one FC, and he was finishing a lot of guys. So that's interesting. But you look at Masvidal's record. Dude has been fighting killers since 2003. Like, look at this man's resume. Like, he fought Rafael Santos back in 2005. Come on, this guy is skilled as it gets. And he's sure he hasn't always beaten the best competition, but he's fought the best competition. I'd say his best win might be Cerrone, or, he has some good wins in his career, but he has wins over Chiesa and Tim Means. But this fight, I'd say it doesn't have to do with Masvidal's resume. It has to do with a lot of other things, though. Ben Askren, on the other hand, this guy's he's a fun fighter. Not the most entertaining style, but his shit talking makes the fights fun in a way. And Ben Askren, what I've seen from his social media and shit, I can see he's just an MMA fan in his real life. Like, he posts about every event, and he talks about all the fighters and who he thinks is gonna win the fights and stuff, and he reacts to it. But I just don't like the competition that he's fought. I think he's speaking himself up more than he is. He's not the most athletic guy. He's a grappler. His striking is absolutely horrendous, and I don't see him being able to control Masvidal like that. Masvidal is fighting for his pride in this fight. That's the main point. Like, he's fighting for his pride. It's different when he was fighting Damian Maia. But let's not forget, he looked good in that Damian Maia fight. He had Damian Maia on his back, and he shook him off to the ground and started punching on him. I'd say Masvidal could have won that fight, but it's actually a benefit that he got that fight, because they have. I would say Ben Askren's jiu-jitsu is not as technical as Maia's, but it's his wrestling is just it's basic. Ben Askren in his fight versus Shabazyan Kazakhstan, that was only 3 fights ago, and that guy did not have any footwork. Like, he let Ben Askren run right into him and just start grappling with him. Masvidal has very good footwork, as we've seen in the Darren Till fight. Of course, he's going to need a different type of footwork in this fight, but look who he's training with. He's training with American Top Team. Mike Brown is his head coach. Masvidal is a very creative fighter, as it is. And he generally doesn't like Askren, so it's not a problem if he's going to be motivated. But I've seen some photos of him. He's training in wrestling headgear, so he knows what kind of fight this is going to be. It's going to be a dirty fight, and he's going to have to put his fist through Ben Askren's face. He will KO him. I'd say ultimately he will not be able to control. Ben Askren will not be able to control Masvidal for a consistent amount of time. Masvidal will probably finish him around, I'd say, either first or second round, because Ben Askren's striking is just bad. So that's the people's main event. Very interesting scrap, just because of the shit talking these guys did. Next up, we got Amanda Nunes, the double champ, versus Holm. It's a typical bantamweight women's fight. This fight's a mismatch in my opinion. Like Holly, she was a great fighter, but she's taken some losses in her career too. I mean, you could really see that she doesn't have anything in her tight boxing game, like in her up close, kind of similar to Renato Moicano, as I called last week when he got KO'd by Zombie. But I mean, she has nothing on the inside. The secret to beating Holly is to walk her down and crowd her kicks. I'd say, Nunes' hands are just too elite on the inside. She's too long. She's too beastly for Holly Holm. Even, Holly's, her coaches are probably telling her, don't stop backing up so much. But, I mean, that's all she knows. She doesn't want to get cracked by Amanda Nunes. But I kind of want to use this pick to talk about another fighter, Ketlen Vieira, who's the second-ranked bantamweight, or maybe the first-ranked bantamweight in this division. I think she's 25 years old, and she's a beast in that division. She's undefeated. I'm not sure why she hasn't had a fight since 2018, but look her up, Ketlen Vieira. I think she's the only threat to beat Amanda Nunes right now, so look her up, but I don't see Holly Holm having a chance, so that's that one. Then we got the main event. Johnny Bones Jones versus Thiago Santos. First off, let me say this. John Jones, he could get dropped 4 times in the first round, and I would still be confident he could find a way to win this fight. There's just, John Jones has shown so much throughout his career. Thiago's a great fighter, don't get me wrong, but I mean he's shown a lot too, but the things he's shown aren't as good, He's been submitted by Eric Spicely. He's been knocked out a couple times by David Branch and other fighters. So you look at this guy's resume. I'm just gonna scroll down for you. Just tell me if you see any names you like. Comment below. Any elite fighters you guys see? Yeah, ever since 2010, he's only been fighting elite fighters. Like, that's ridiculous, man. In my opinion, no one can beat a fully prepared John Jones. No one can get past that 84-inch reach with the best reflexes in the game right now. In my opinion, John Jones is the most diverse and complete MMA fighter of all time. And, Thiago Santos I'd say his best win is Jack Hermanson. He's had a good career, but ultimately he is the same guy that lost to Eric Spicely and Uriah Hall. In a lot of these fights, he's either finishing someone or he's getting finished in the first round. So, that kind of puts things into perspective. I could see Jones, submitting him in the first round if it gets tricky, but, Jones could play it safe and kind of see how he's feeling. But ultimately, Jones always finds a path to victory through setup and through technique. He always, comes out with the cleanest way of getting the win. So just like I said before, John Jones is the most diverse, complete MMA fighter of all time. So I think it's going to take someone better than Thiago Santos to beat him. And again, that's just my opinion, but I think most of you guys could say that's fact as well. So that's that. Thank you guys, whoever made it this far. I'm trying to keep this momentum going, y'all. I mean, we only missed 1 fight last week, so I don't think we're gonna miss any this week. I missed the last card. I just wanted to give my full attention to UFC 239 International Fight Week. I feel like these fights really deserved it, so broke down a lot of film on this card. These picks are spot on right here, man. So we going 12 for 12 this time. Shout out to all my subscribers. We just hit 20 subscribers, man. I'd like to say thank you to all of you guys. We're only going up here, so stay around for the ride. Leave a comment, leave a like if you guys want to discuss some fights. Shout out to all the viewers out there, man. Appreciate y'all. Until next time.